There are not in my backyard stories, and then there are not in my backyard bordering pristine protected lands stories. But who wants a monkey facility next to any of them? PETA exposes a secret plan that has upset Texas residents south of Houston. Next on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights. Brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, the Not in My Backyard story of the day deals with a big multi-billion-dollar company, Charles River Labs, and its attempt to secretly purchase pristine land in South Texas to build a monkey breeding and laboratory facility. When residents of Brazoria County in Texas got mad, they knew who to contact: PETA. Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel, PETA Primatologist, talks about the dangers of potentially placing a monkey facility there and why Texans have a right to be concerned. On this edition of the PETA Podcast, Dr. Jones-Engel admits she was surprised by the residents' call.
They came to us. The landowners came to us before they went to anyone else. I mean, these are not folks that necessarily we would share a whole lot of common ground with, I would have thought.
Yeah. I mean, these were just people who lived in that part of Texas who were concerned about Charles River moving in there.
Right.
And they know to go to someone, they go to PETA and they said, PETA, help. And
yeah, that's exactly what they did. That's exactly.
And this is kind of how the story goes. You know, the headline is Charles River Laboratory secretive land grab for monkey facility prompts pushback from PETA, really at the behest of these residents. And, you know, it may be like, is it too soon to sound the alarm? I mean, that might be one question. If, you know, the news in Brazoria County or the people in Texas aren't as alarmed as these residents. But this may be the prequel to what could be down the road that would be a news story, which is here's this lab that gets put in and boy, people were talking about it, but no one listened and it got put in. And now look at all these monkeys here and where the monkeys coming from and are the monkeys disease and do they represent a threat? That's usually when it becomes a story. Now it seems like you're coming out before to try to prevent all that. And I mean, I guess the question is, are you really, I mean, because some news agencies would say, let's wait and see. You know, maybe it's not a bad thing, but you're saying, oh, this could be something. This is a bad thing. Why is it a bad thing in your mind that Charles River Labs is going in there secretively to try to put in a monkey facility?
Well, it's a bad thing for obviously the monkeys. Charles River, I think, as I'm understanding it from talking to the landowners who are involved, thought that they had found like this perfect spot for monkeys. 539 acres, a former exotic ranch for hoof stock, you know, for people to come in and hunt on. High chain link fences all around it. Growth, you know, evergreen growth around the fences. It's got some outbuildings already on it. You know, if you were Shannon Parasoto, who is the person, the executive VP at Charles River, who's behind the purchase of this, we're sitting in your office someplace and you looked at a map and you saw this description on the real estate thing, you would say, wow, this is pretty darn perfect. It's got an access road. It's got this land. No one's going to be looking in there. But what Shannon and Charles River didn't understand was that the folks living around there are veterinarians who are landowners. There are, you know, third, fourth, fifth generation Texans who are landowners, who the first things that they said to me were, what is this going to do to our land? What are the consequences of monkeys coming in here, of monkeys getting loose? They already knew to ask about Do we need to be concerned about disease transmission from these monkeys? What about the smell coming from the monkeys? What about the sound? What are the monkeys going to do if they get loose? They already knew the questions to ask, but they needed to come to us to help them get that story out there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I suppose just like in any kind of big purchase by a corporation, there's going to be an environmental impact report, and there'll be all these things that are going to be presented to the, in this case, the Brazoria County Commissioner, or the commission rather. Why can't we just allow the process to run its course and to see what comes up? Do you think it's more effective to strike early and say, and to sound the alarm early, or why not just wait to see what they find?
Let us never forget that Charles River is a multi-billion-dollar company. Charles River is used to getting their way when it comes to doing whatever they want with monkeys, whether it's importing monkeys allegedly illegally, treating them however they want, violating Animal Welfare Act regulations in their facilities. Charles River is not used to being told no, particularly in this part of Texas, as we found out, because, we immediately went to the commissioners. We immediately started going to Fish and Wildlife, to the people around there. And they're like, this is going to be tough, because generally in this part of Texas, you can do what you want to do on your own land. So that's what really spurred us talking to the landowners about, all right, we need to get in touch with the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality. We immediately reached out to Fish and Wildlife Services, their ecological services division. We're reaching out to the Corps of Engineers. We're going to everyone who would be on this list of boxes that Charles River would have to check in order to get this facility in, and helping them understand what the consequences would be, because there is not a worse place in Texas that you could drop a monkey farm than this 539 acres that they're proposing.
A worse place because why do you say that? It would seem to be, as Charles River thought when they purchased the land in March, it would seem ideal for a monkey facility. Why would you say it's the worst place?
From a monkey's perspective, this is almost like nirvana. This is old growth forest. It's got lots of standing water. It's regularly flooded. It's got clay soils. The type of monkey that Charles River will bring in is almost certainly the long-tailed macaques. Long-tailed macaques love water. They love to swim. They love to play in water. But the other thing about water is that this area is also notorious for flooding and for mosquitoes. And we've already seen from the CDC, we've already seen from the publications coming out of the industry themselves, that monkeys are arriving into the U.S. infected with malaria. And so imagine you take this giant reservoir of monkeys infected with malaria, you drop them down in this forested area with all the standing water, with mosquito vectors who are capable of transmitting malaria. You have just set up ground zero for malaria transmission from mosquitoes who will bite the monkeys, who could then go out and bite any of the individuals who are around that area.
So the real concern is zoonotic disease transmission, which is no light thing. I mean, it should be a big red flag.
It should be a massive red flag. This is, as far as we know, this is only the second time that Charles River has tried to establish an outdoor monkey facility. They have lots of indoor monkey facilities around the country. They tried to establish one in the Florida Keys several decades ago, and that was a colossal disaster, an ecological disaster, an environmental disaster. It was a disaster for the monkeys. And that was before we even really knew much about the risk of zoonotic disease transmission from imported monkeys to humans. We know now what these animals who are caught up in this pipeline are capable of bringing in with them. Charles River knows what they're capable of bringing in with them. And the arrogance, the complete disregard for public health by placing these monkeys in this kind of prime mosquito breeding flooding area it's insanity.
So they purchased the land in March, Charles River, and the purchase was secretive because nowhere does it say it's Charles River. It's the buyer is Candort LLC, which is connected because Candort's president is a corporate executive vice president of Charles River. This is like her hobby, I guess, or her way of like starting her own monkey business, I suppose. Huh?
So let me just run the timeline for you just a little bit on this one.
Sure.
I think it was March 23, Candort LLC was established in Delaware as a limited license company. Then on March 27th, Candort purchased this 539 acres of this Columbia bottomland in Brazoria County. We've got the paper trail. We've already collected the documents on this. And it turns out over the next few months, there were actually whispers in the area about, somebody's putting in a monkey farm here. And the landowners around thought, well, there's no way in hell that's going to happen. That couldn't be. So they're just thinking, whatever. But they knew that that former exotic game farm had been sold. And then on September 20th, 3 Charles River employees, Chip Vaughn, who's the Associate Director of Quarantine Facilities for Charles River, a veterinarian from Charles River's Houston facility, and another staffer from Charles River's Houston facility, met with 2 of the property owners. And they said, hey neighbor, we're planning to drop a monkey farm here. It's in phase A. They're going to build the monkeys there they're going to hold them there for a period of time. They're not going to experiment on them. We're going to bring them in at night. We'll only move the monkeys in and out at night, so you won't have to worry about seeing us. We'll have about 60 employees. There'll be 24/7 surveillance. There'll be securities. We'll have our own waste management system. We'll be able to contain all this waste. Don't worry. It's not going to roll any of the monkey poo and monkey pee and monkey blood and guts and whatnot. Don't worry. They're not going to roll off into any of your land. And this is great, right? The landowners, who happen to be a veterinarian, and again, a multi-generational Texan, said, no, this is not great. This is why would you drop a monkey farm right here? So that was September 20th. Now, on September 21st, the very next day, Charles River holds their meeting with management, a big webinar. They've had like a half a dozen of their big management folks. They do this big webinar. Shannon Parasoto, the president of Candort, comes on. She does her presentation. She mentions how, we are reducing our use of monkeys here in the U.S. We're moving most of our stuff to our international sites. The CEO of Charles River is repeating this throughout the presentation. Not once in that presentation did anyone from Charles River say, oh, by the way, we just dropped $4.5 million and sent some of our staff down to scope out this facility right here.
So maybe that's a clue that maybe this is Parasoto, the executive vice president's own personal thing, but no, you're saying it is a Charles River operation?
Well, if it's her own personal thing, who's paying the salaries of Chip Vaughn and the Houston Charles River vet and the other Houston person who came down there to meet with the landowners? Who's paying for the upgrades of this, dead-end country road that all of a sudden Brazoria County went in and, upgraded the infrastructure on the road so it could handle big trucks? No, I don't think Shannon Parasoto has a side monkey hobby. I think that perhaps Charles River thought that they could slide under the radar on that one.
Yeah, so essentially they're using Shannon Parasoto. She's the proxy for Charles River, but it really is Charles River. Make no mistake.
Yes, and this, we've found other documents where Shannon Parasoto is the director of a monkey farm and 2 monkey farms. She signed up as director of monkey farms in Mauritius, and she identifies herself as, Shannon Parasoto, Charles River's executive VP. There's a little bit of a pattern that's starting to emerge here.
So it's already gone to as far as, in fixing the infrastructure, Brazoria County. But as far as we know, it's just an outdoor monkey facility. They're not going to construct a facility as to have it be an indoor facility. Still, they have to go, Charles River or this company, Candirt, run by an executive vice president of Charles River. They have to go before the Brazoria County commissioners, or is it all said and done? I mean, because if they're not building a facility, do they even have to go to Brazoria County commissioners?
So they would be building a facility. It really sounds like the way that they were describing this to the landowners, this is going to be, it sounds like a quarantine facility. So they're only, an hour and a half outside of Houston. Houston is the main airport for importation of primates into the U.S. The Charles River appears to be kind of positioning themselves as a new monkey breeder and monkey holder here in the U.S. And I'm speculating right now, so allow me to speculate. But we heard at the beginning of this year, the report came out from the National Academies of Science on the expected use of non-human primates, and they said basically the biosecurity risks with importation are so great that we're going to need to rely more on domestic breeding facilities. That was the conclusion of this committee. Charles River may be deciding that, okay, we're going to throw our hat into becoming the next big monkey breeder of long-tailed macaques here. If that's the case, they could not have, they shouldn't be breeding monkeys at all, but you couldn't have chosen a worse place in this country to do this.
Yeah, going back to the whole threat to disease that we mentioned, the zoonotic disease transmission, earlier in the conversation. So I can see why some people are concerned now, but is it too early to sound the alarm? We don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. We haven't seen anything yet. Would it be too late once they get the monkeys in, they start breeding, they start quarantining, and then there's disease? Is that too late so that we have to do it now?
Of course we have to do it now. And so don't forget, whether it was earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, about what was going on in Levy County in Florida. Remember how we had gotten word again? Somebody came to PETA, and they said, "Hey, we hear about this Chinese facility that just bought, a couple of thousand acres of land in the middle of Levy County, Florida, and we hear that they're planning to put in, a monkey importation and breeding facility." And PETA activated, and we sent thousands of letters to the folks in the area. We wrote to the governor. We got it into the press. We got onto the mainstream media. And with the exact same concerns that we have here in Brazoria County, we had there in Levy County. This is an ideal breeding ground for mosquitoes, the potential for zoonotic transmission with just the urine and feces leaching into the soil and water. And Emil, we were successful very quickly on that one. That company, Joanne, said, "Oh, sorry, just mistake. Yeah, no, we decided this is not a bad idea." That's why we're doing this right now here in Brazoria County, because the minute the first brick is laid, the first pipe is dropped down, then it becomes so much more difficult. We rally the entire community to say, this will be the price to the environment, and the price to the people in this county will be so high if you allow this facility to go forward. And it is that moving forward with this message now has been incredibly powerful because everyone is responding.
I was wondering about dealing with Charles River. They're not exactly honest brokers here, are they? I mean, you see how they have come in, not necessarily under false pretenses, but certainly they don't put Charles River out there as the as the main brand. They sort of disguise it somewhat. But why would you be, number one, why, if you were just a regular member of the public, why would you be suspicious of Charles River here? And why would you say, boy, coming in secretly like this is, shows that they're definitely up to no good. Why would a member of the public want to look at that and say, make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted because something's fishy here?
Well, let's not forget that Charles River is currently under investigation by the Department of Justice, both civil and criminal investigations associated with their importation of primates. They're under investigation by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, because of their dealings with foreign entities about their importation of primates. Charles River is on the wrong side of this issue. Even Charles River's shareholders, a substantial portion of them, know that Charles River does not want to be upfront and transparent about their monkey business. When we put in our shareholder resolution last year, asking just very simply, Charles River, tell us how many monkeys you're bringing in, tell us where you're getting them from, tell us where you're moving them. Charles River fought vociferously back against that. But still, a third of the voting shares voted in favor of our resolution, a resolution for transparency. Charles River can exist because they exist in the dark. They exist in the shadows. Their facilities are barbed wired around. There are no cameras inside of their laboratories. The public is not stupid. These folks down there know this does not smell right. It did not pass the sniff test. You don't come. They've said to me again, well, why would they want to be moving those monkeys in and out under the cover of darkness of every night? What are they trying to hide?
Well, that's a big question. And I think it sounds like if they were just transparent, would anyone in the right mind allow Charles River to do what they want to do there in Brazoria County?
Absolutely not. Again, it's ecologically, this will devastate this area. So not only is this 539 acres in this kind of Columbia bottomland with the standing water, very clay soils, but basically on every single side of it, on one side you have the San Bernard National Wildlife Refuge. On another side, you have the Nature Conservancy. On the other side, you have U.S. Fish and Wildlife protected lands. This is public land, protected public land that completely enwraps this proposed facility. And so the public will be subject to any of the downsides, the runoff, literally the runoff from this facility. And that, we talked about the mosquitoes, but let's also think about when you have hundreds, thousands of monkeys in indoor-outdoor facilities, and this would be an indoor-outdoor facility. It wouldn't just strictly be outdoors. These monkeys would not be running around, gambling through the trees. No, they would be in cages, but it would be outside. You'd be hosing out the concrete floors. You'd be aerosolizing the poo and the pee. And then this would get into the soil. This would get into the water. And we already know that Texas already has seen imported monkeys arrive with things like Burkholderia pseudomele, a bacteria so dangerous, shed in the urine and feces, that can exist then in the soil and water, a bacteria so dangerous that here in the U.S., we consider it a tier 1 select agent. In 2021, 2022, multiple monkeys arrived in Texas at another facility with that. You have the Salmonella, the Yersinia, the Campylobacter, all these really nasty bacterial infections that the animals will shed.
And how did that area in Texas fare against, all this disease that you say occurred? Have they survived? And should the people in Brazoria really take that to heart? Or is that really kind of an isolated thing that happened in that area of Texas that you just referred to?
So the area of Texas I'm talking about is the Inativ and SNBL facilities up in western, kind of more central western Texas. Incredibly dry, bone dry area. No standing trees, no standing water. These are massive facilities out there. It's dry. The wind is blowing all the time. Those facilities, Initiv is absolutely sideways right now with the Texas government and with the federal government for violations of the Clean Water Act. And that's because they have not been able to contain the waste, the runoff from their facilities. And so they just announced themselves in their recent SEC filings that they are under investigation for violations of the Clean Water Act. And that's in a bone dry area. Imagine what's going to happen down here in this part of Texas, not that far from the Gulf, where this is a soupy place. This is, you can get 3 to 4 inches of rain in an afternoon. There is so much water, and water is a perfect vehicle for disease transmission.
And we're not just talking about Brazoria County, because it has some proximity to, I guess, the nearest metropolitan area is Houston, right?
Houston, Galveston,
yeah,
is right there. I mean, so it's Brazoria County, and then there's Galveston County, and then there's Harris County, and those three are all kind of clumped together. And where this Charles River facility, you wouldn't call it a suburb of Houston, but it's like a suburb.
Right. Well, I mean, the counties there are huge.
Yeah.
But between Brazoria, Galveston, and Harris County is where Houston is.
Right.
The idea of zoonotic disease transmission from Brazoria to Harris County, where Houston is that so far-fetched?
Is that so far-fetched? When you're talking about vectors, when you're talking about mosquitoes in particular, it becomes more likely. Mosquitoes have the ability to fly 1 mile to 3 miles a day. So if you have this reservoir of infected monkeys, whether they're infected with malaria or West Nile virus or dengue or chikungunya or whatever they happen to come in with, if a mosquito goes, feeds on them, and then finds a human, could bite that human, infect that human now is a source of infection. Then another mosquito bites that infected human and flies off.
So if you're at Charles River or Candert and you say, come on, Brazoria County, we're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. We're going to do our best to make sure that everything is safe and on the up and up. Our business is at stake. We are out there to protect the public's health. Is that just PR nonsense, or do they have any credibility?
They have zero credibility when it comes to how they have handled this previously. Again, let's go back to their like 1970s when they brought monkeys, and this was rhesus macaques, over, and they dropped them into the Florida Keys on a little island there. They completely decimated those mangroves. They polluted the area. And, I do not blame the monkeys for this. The monkeys did what monkeys do. They're on this island. They were free ranging. They're going to eat the mangroves. They're going to pee. They're going to poop. But Charles River, they had to be sued. The state, Florida, and multiple environmental groups really had to take them to the mat to get them to remove the monkeys and to restore that incredibly fragile and devastated ecosystem. Charles River has a lousy track record for caring anything about what they do to monkeys in any environment.
All right, but now they've purchased the land. They want to do something with the land. Under what circumstances would they be allowed to, or what could they do with their land that would meet all the different objections from the residents and from PETA?
You'd have to put, it wouldn't even work to put a giant bubble over it, because then you have all the standing water in the soil and the ability for water to move. There is nothing that Charles River, nothing monkey-wise that Charles River could put on that property that would be safe for the environment, safe for the citizens of that area, that would protect the monkeys. No, Charles River made a bad purchase. It's like they were sitting in their living room when they put their finger on this dot. They didn't ground truth it. But perhaps most importantly, they didn't realize that we would find out. I don't think Charles River ever thought in their wildest dreams that Texas landowners would come knocking on PETA's door and saying, help me protect my land. Help me make sure that these lands, which we've been in our family for generations, we don't lose the value of them. We're not at risk for disease transmission, that we're not going to go walking out there one day and have, a monkey come up on us.
Are those families powerful enough to withstand the power of Charles River, or is there too much money? Is there too much money out there that they can throw at this family?
I think so. It's not just these families. So we recently, earlier this week, we reached out to dozens of conservation groups in Texas. And the responses have been, no one had any clue that this was happening. They're coming back to us and saying, what? I want to read one of the comments that I just got back from someone today, and this person was saying, flooding and mosquitoes in this area can be intense and can spread diseases to the many towns and cities nearby. If those diseases are released into the environment by monkeys, I could not think of a worse place to locate such a facility in Texas. I think they've made a bad mistake, and their business is probably going to fail to succeed under these conditions. But the price to the environment and the people of this county could be high. This is a conservation group that we alerted. Citizens, conservation groups understand now the risk that this importation industry represents. A few years ago, I think Charles River could have gotten away with it. But we're out there now. The message is out there. I don't think that Charles River will succeed. We've been speaking to representatives. We've been reaching out to the commissions. People are learning about this, and they're like, there is no way that we want these monkeys in this facility. And so I think it's like so much of what we do, Emil. Once people know, once people see the cost to the animals, the cost to the taxpayer, in this case, the cost to the environment, people recognize that harm is so much greater than they had perceived, and it is certainly not in any way worth the risks.
Lisa Jones-Engel, thank you very much for being on the PETA Podcast.
Thank you very much, Emil.
Dr. Lisa Jones-Engel, PETA Primatologist, talking about the dangers of a potential monkey facility in Brazoria County in South Texas, and how residents were so angry they blew the whistle on Charles River Labs and its plans. We'll be following. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. You can contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, or that's X, formerly known as Twitter, at Emil Amok, EMILAMOK, or see my vlog at AMOK.com, or see my work at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Or get this podcast on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to, as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.